Is it? Yeah, is that working?
Yes,
Yeah.
we're on.
Yes, that's it.
Is that it? Hello. Can you still hear us then? No.
Okay, hello and welcome to Fanteam Focus. Sorry about the delay. We had some audio issues, unfortunately, which is always the way. I'm joined by Callum and Jay. I'm just going to get their cameras sorted now because Callum was a bit late joining us. How are you doing, Callum?
Yeah, very well, mate. Very, very well. I've had I had a busy day yesterday. I went over to Spurs and did the old Skywalk and the Stadium tour. So it gave me the nice first chance in the car to actually have a proper look at a draft, have a look at the prices, have a look at me being my biased head on trying to, work Kane and Son into the same team.
Oh, you've gone for Kane and Son.
I mean, yeah, we'll come on to it a little bit later, but I am such a, I don't know. I mean, I saw this actually debate on Twitter the other day about certain people of certain fans being really good to go to for advice. Well, I think it's completely opposite. And anyone that knows me, certainly, I'm sure probably a lot of our viewers at the minute will be from the Footstop days, knowing that my advice is terrible because I put Kane and Son everywhere, regardless of who we're playing. I know we've got Man City first game, but I'm sure a captaincy will probably go on one of them because I'm the most blinkered, biased football fan there possibly is in the country. So it gave me a lovely time to sit down, have a draft, and try and work my way into having Kane and Son in the same team. But yeah, it was nice to have a look. The prices, again, we'll come on to it later, but the prices, I think Fanteam have smashed it in terms of actually giving us decisions. I feel like FPL is so much that there's nothing there. It's very much incendiary in one way, but I think Fanteam have nailed the prices so much that there's actually so many different options that we're not going to have a template team as such. So yeah, massively excited now and I'm proper, my head is into the content game. So yeah, massively excited.
Awesome. Yeah, interesting to hear you say that because I picked my team last night as well, last minute, and I think I found the same. I found it quite easy to pick a team and to squeeze like quite a few premiums in, whereas FPL this year, I think there are some difficult ones you have to leave out, I think. So yeah, that's interesting. We're also joined by Jada here at Schadenfreude First, is it, on Twitter? Me and Jay had an awesome discussion last night. How are you doing, Jay?
Yeah, hi guys. Thanks for having me. So yeah, I completely agree with Callum. The price points for Fanteam are they've absolutely smashed it compared to FPL, especially with Mane at 10 million, and I think they've priced players like Rafinha at 7.5 instead of 6.5, and I think Lamptey is 5 million instead of 4.5. So I think they've been more than fair with all these prices. And two notable mentions are Solly March and San Maximan, who are actually at different positions than in FPL. So you have San Maximan as a midfielder in Fanteam, and you have Solly March as a defender in Fanteam. So that's actually much better for their return prospects because San Maximan has more points for avenues to clean sheet and extra points for scoring and stuff. And Solly March will also have clean sheets if he can nail down a starting position. So yeah.
Tell you what, that Solly March shout's just thrown my draft into all sorts of bits I didn't know as a defender. So wow, yeah, he's I like him. I liked him a lot last year. So wow, there you go. That serves me right for not delving deep into the Brighton assets that are probably, what is he, 4.5 million maybe?
Yeah, 4.5. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, that's thrown me all over the place.
Okay, so guys, if you're new to Fanteam, don't worry because I am as well. These guys are going to obviously try and help me through the situation and hopefully help you guys through as well. If you come over from FPL or something like that, like myself, don't worry, we'll try and explain it to you. We're going to talk about the prizes that are involved in Fanteam. What are the key differences and what's the unique selling point of the game and why should you ultimately come over? We're going to talk to Jay about data modeling. Me and Jay had an amazing discussion last night about data modeling and all sorts. So he's passionate about that. We've got some slides. We're going to really dive deep into some of the data with Jay. We're going to do our first drafts. Callum spoke just now about his first draft and how he found picking it. I picked mine as well, and obviously Jay has got his. One of the key differences straight away is you can have multiple teams. Myself and Callum, we're just showing one team today, and we'll talk to Callum about his strategy later on. I think I'm just going with one team, but I know Jay is going with at least two, so we'll show Jay's both teams. Then I'm going to hand over to Callum for a giveaway. I don't know if you want to mention anything about that now as a spoiler, Callum.
Yeah, absolutely. To apologise for our slight technical issues this morning, we were only going to give away one ticket, but as we are men of the people, we'll throw away two just as a little bit of an apology. It will be a question on something that is mentioned somewhere in the stream today. So, we want to give that ticket away to someone that deserves it. So it'll be a question later on in the stream, and the first one to pop their answer into the chat will win the first ticket. and then obviously the second one to do the second question will win the second ticket. So we want people to be listening, paying attention, and so we'll throw away 2 tickets to that 1 million season long on Fanteam later in the stream.
Wicked, yeah, and I just want to apologise to you guys as well for being late. It's all my fault. How about that? I put it on my shoulders. So, prizes then in FPL, and let me just turn my volume down because it might be a bit louder than the other guys. Prizes in Fanteam, obviously differ wildly from the other games, okay? So I can see the guys' heads have just shrunk there. Again, apologies for the technical issues. We'll iron all these out during the stream and obviously fix them for the next one. But first place is 200 grand. And I mean, I don't even know what first place prize is in FPL because it's just so crap, isn't it? That I just don't even care. It's more about the kind of the community, I think, and stuff like that, and the competition within that. But for Fanteam, 200 grand is the first prize, okay? Then second prize is 75 grand, which isn't to be sniffed at, and you get paid all the way up to, and let me get this right, 3,000 on first place. Is that correct, Callum?
It's up to 5,000.
Oh, it's up to 5,000.
5,000 rank doubles your money, which is a nice improvement to the Euros one. Those kind of places, you only won 30 quid. I say 30 quid, but it means you're only kind of receiving an extra £10, and for a whole kind of tournament, it wasn't great. So I think Fanteam have kind of changed that around for this one. But yeah, the fact that, I mean, I would imagine there are something around 50,000 entries probably by the time we get there. I think the Euro one was about 35,000. So I'd imagine 50, probably more than 50. I'm probably underestimating that. But that's the big difference, isn't it? The fact that, in Fanteam, you've got to beat 49,000 people, whereas in FPL, you've got to try and beat 7 million people and you still don't win as much. So obviously the odds are a lot more in your favour. And I think, as we can see there, kind of the payouts from first down to kind of like the 400, if you're still winning 150 quid. So, there's big money. And obviously any kind of, if you're getting a top 10, you're looking at massive amounts. Obviously, to be honest, first prize could be well, for a lot of people, probably a life-changing amount of money, and then the rest, obviously, you're certainly not going to sniff that. So yeah, that for me, that's the big draw. There's £1 million they're giving away, and it's not, Fanteam's not at the stage yet where it's so popular that everyone's going to know about it. So you're still going to have it is a niche, it's still a niche market, but the fact that actually they're giving away £1 million, and like we said, anywhere up to 5,000, you're still doubling your money. It's not to be sniffed at, and something that obviously you get enjoyment along the way. Obviously, we've got all the weekly monsters along the way as well. So even if you get to game week 30 and your teams are down in the dust, you still get that fresh chance each week to enter your free hit as such on FPL, as it's called, every single week on a monster that again is normally a massive prize pool. So yeah, Fanteam's the one where if you love your fantasy, go over, because the prize pools are absolutely massive.
Yeah, Jay, what's your thoughts on the prize pools in Fanteam then? I know you had a little bit of success in the Euro game in Fanteam.
Yeah, so I used my data model too. I mean, I got 3 places which paid off, and I think a lot of accounts also, there were a few giveaways, like for example, there was Premier Injuries, Ben Dinnery. So I think most of us know him, and I think it was Who Scored as well.
Yeah.
They had some giveaways and stuff like that. So yeah, I think the prize pool is more than decent. And I think, if I'm not wrong, the person who's going to finish first every week also has some sort of incentive, right? Callum, if I'm not wrong?
I'll have to pass on that one, mate. I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, I
think
read
so.
that.
I think so. I've
Yeah.
seen it somewhere, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like, if you realize that, you're not going to finish amongst the places, you can try to get that 1 week kind of first place rank, and that doesn't include hits. So you could basically reinvent your team for 1 week and try to get that, if you realize that, you might not end up in the first 5,000. So, you can keep going after some sort of prize money till the last game week, which is much better, because in FPL it could happen that in the first 10-15 game weeks you're so far behind that you might lose interest in playing the game, which is absolutely not the case in Fanteam. So I think that's also a really good initiative taken by Fanteam.
Yeah, definitely. So that brings us neatly on, I suppose, to the differences between the two. And for me, and I just apologise in advance, as soon as I change the screen here, the boys' heads are gonna shrink again. I got to adjust them. So I'll get my bit out of the way, and then I'll flip over, and I'll pass over to the guys. So the key differences for me, as someone new coming into the game from FPL, are it's about money. It's a gambling product. There's nothing to hide away from that, and we should embrace that, I think. So that's the main big difference for me. And the second big difference, I think, is the fact that you can enter multiple teams and you're encouraged to enter multiple teams. Callum, what do you think are the two... do you think I'm right in saying they're the two biggest differences? And are there any other differences you would want to highlight?
Yeah, I'd say you're absolutely right. I think it's always a topic of conversation in terms of there will be people that enter 100 teams into this. And I've always looked at it from the approach of I'm more than happy for people to do that because obviously in a normal monster scenario they'd be boosting the prize pool, and we all know that if you're entering 100 teams, kind of every team that you constantly enter is kind of then a little bit more differential and probably weaker and weaker and weaker. So I'm happy with my aim. I think I've currently entered 3 teams, and unless there's a big incentive, big offer, I think I'll probably leave it at that because I want it to be manageable and I want it to not take over my weekends having to change over kind of 10, 20 teams. And obviously David, one of the members of Fanteam Focus, on his podcast, he had about 50 into the Euros, and he said it was just a nightmare. It was taking him a whole day to change all of his teams. So I think 3, maximum I'll do is 5 is quite a nice sweet spot for me. But that I think that multiple entries is big, and people will take advantage of it. But certainly don't be put off by the fact that someone's entering 100, because at the end of the day, you're going to be more focused on your 2, 3, 1 rather than their 100, where they'll take a few more risks here and there. So obviously that's a big one. One of the big things that also takes me to Fanteam is rid of the stupid bonus point system on FPL that just doesn't seem to make sense. 1 week someone gets 3 bonus points for doing nothing in the game, and someone else will have an absolute worldie and they'll receive nothing. So Fanteam doesn't have that bonus point, that FPL bonus point system. But the big kind of thing that we have to look at, and something that is going to take kind of a big thing this year, obviously shots on target is a new way that they're going to start scoring this year. Obviously, it came into play in the Euros, but certainly for a defender, I think off the top of my head, I think it's 0.6 points they get for a defender shot on target, which obviously starts to bring in a lot more strategy, because you're looking at, for example, your Lewis Dunks that seem to get on the end of every corner, and it brings a different strategy to play. So I like that. I think midfielders, I think 0.5 for shot on target, maybe strikers 0.4. So that's quite a big difference. We've got impact points, again, that they actually reduced quite massively this year. So it used to be -1 if they'd lost a game and +1 if they won the game. That's now been reduced to plus 0.3 if they win, and then minus 0.3 if they lose. So that, again, I like it because it gives us more scope to go to the underdog players, because they're not losing a point if they lose the game. So for example, your Solly Marches, who now seems to be stuck in my head and he's going to make my way in, I think. Only 0.3 for losing, it's okay. It's something that you're happy to go with now. Whereas before, -1, it's quite a hefty kind of penalty and a big margin. So for me, they're the two main things that we have to kind of look at. So you're looking at your impact points, but obviously they are reduced now, so it's not massively. But for me, the shots on target. And then the last one as well is the 90 minutes for a midfielder and a striker. So if your midfielders or your striker is playing for the whole 90 minutes, you also get an extra point. So that's where your people like your Ollie Watkins, that seems to play every single minute at Villa, become a little bit more appealing. And your midfielders that, CDMs are never the most, they're never the most handsome people in the world, but your Højbjergs at Spurs, he's going to be looking at 3 points kind of minimum per game, because he's going to start and he'll probably play the whole game. So you're looking at 3 points straight away. So even for a DM, it starts to then potentially bring those kind of guys into my thinking as well. So they're big changes. But yeah, for me, the 90 minutes and the shots on target, for me, are kind of the two big things that we have to look at.
That 90-minute one sounds like a big one. So it's not just, so you get the appearance point like you normally would for the 60 minutes, yeah, correct? And then you also get an extra one for the 90.
Yeah, so if they start the game, it's 1. If they complete more than 60, they get another one, and then if a midfielder or striker finishes the game, they also get another one. So yeah, a midfielder or striker finishing the game is looking at 3 points straight away. So yeah, it's a decent haul.
That's mad. Jay, what's your thoughts on, firstly, I know you're a numbers guy, so the numbers behind entering multiple teams, etc. What do you think on that, and also what do you think about some of the comments just made there by Callum?
Yeah, I think Callum is right that if someone is entering 100 teams, on one hand that can seem daunting, but on the other hand, it is equally likely that that increases the prize pot as well, right? I mean, they are entering more teams, so uh, uh, if you manage to cross the prize pool barrier, then you might have even more places which might end up in money. So right now it's 5,000, it might be even more. So there is a guy called TTRIBL. I don't know how to pronounce it, but I think it's Tribal.
Yeah.
He's the guy who won the 200,000 for Euros 2020, and he's like a professional gambler and stuff. And I mean, he's entering 100 teams in every single tournament. So someone who has his experience and strategy, you can't really compete with that. But if you manage, like Callum said, even a top 100 finish is quite a lot of money. So that's something you can definitely aim for, even if you think that top 10 and stuff like that might be slightly improbable. But I think it's still not impossible, because some variance on your side, some luck on your side, and you can definitely do that. And as far as the changes go, I think BPS is absolutely a random system. If you remember, there was a shot by Jamie Vardy from the halfway line, which they counted as a big chance missed, and he lost 2 bonus points because of that. That was absolutely maddening, because I had captained him, and it was I was fuming, because it's just it's such a random thing. And this is quite better in that sense, because this is quantifiable, right? It's simple. It's a shot on target. It's not up for debate. It's a shot on target. I mean, very rarely is it up for debate.
It's handy for people like you in the data modeling world, right? Because I know we spoke last night about excuse me, my daughter I think is trying to sneak in the room here. We spoke last night about bonus points and how difficult they are to model in data modeling, because like you say, they're so almost unquantifiable, right?
Yeah, so the thing is, if you I'm sure most of the people watching would know FPL Review or stuff like FF Hub, FF Scout. They all have their own points prediction model in place, but all of them have to account for the bonus points, because they make a massive difference, especially if captaincy is involved. Like someone like Bruno, even if he gets like a phantom assist, it straight away bumps him up to 3 bonus points. So that kind of thing, it's very hard to legislate for, and that is that's a very big uncertainty in terms of predicting how well a player will return. But in Fanteam, I think it's much better in terms of that. So the only random variables I've found in this are causing a penalty and causing a free kick scored. So they are very random events, just like a player getting a penalty. Similarly, of course, that will be a player causing a penalty. So that's completely random. And I spoke to Reese about this last night. So on an average, a penalty is caused once. One in every 81 fouls is a penalty, and one in every 397 fouls is a direct free kick scored. And you only get about 22 fouls in a game. So you can understand how random these things are, and it's much easier to legislate for them rather than bonus points. So that's kind of my thinking. And also the save points are pretty good for goalkeepers, because you don't have to wait for 3 saves to get 1 point. You keep getting 0.5 for each save that they make. So that's much better in terms of you don't have to wait for 6 saves to get 2 points. Even if they make 5 saves, you still get 2.5 points.
Nice.
So that's a much better system in terms of that.
Yeah, I like that.
So you don't have that's I think that's much better than what FPL have.
So Jay, I've got a graphic for you then, talking about shooters and fouls, etc. Do you want to speak to us a little bit about this?
Yeah. So I went through every single player who is registered for any club in the Premier League for this season. I went through 5 seasons of their playing career, and I tried to see who are the volume shooters. So you need volume shooters in FPL anyway, because you need people who are going to have shots on goal. So there is an inherent increase in probability of them scoring sometime, and also a fantasy assist, right? So even if they are not scoring, there is a high chance that their shot might deflect off a defender and or a goalkeeper making a save, which will then be scored by another player or of the crossbar or the post. So that also helps us out. And in fan team, you also get points for shots on target. So that's something interesting. And if you have a look at the graphic there, the the only two midfielders in this are Salah and Benrahma. So Benrahma, as we know, he doesn't have the guarantee of minutes, and most of his exploits came in the championship for Brentford. But Salah is obviously the big outlier in this. He's the only midfielder in the top 10 volume shooters who is there. So all the rest of all of them are forwards. So his value is even more, I think, in fan team, because Salah loses a lot of bonus points in FPL because he keeps losing possession and he misses big chances. So there is much more of a scope for Salah to score more points.
So he's even more essential in this game then.
The E word. I won't say the E word,
Say
but
it.
you get that. Yeah, you get that, right? I mean, is near essential, I would say. I've used that word, near essential, in one of my articles. It's
Just gonna shut this down.
yeah, it's so apart from that, I think for fouls per 90 as well, I've just included that stat just to have a look at who is more likely to cause a free kick or a penalty. Of course, this does not mean that there is a direct correlation, but it kind of gives you a sense that which players are more guilty of making fouls, right? So if you are making more fouls, then there is a chance that you might consider a direct free kick. So the only surprise in here is Ivan Toney, and I spoke to a Brentford fan and he was not surprised, of course, because he watches all their games. But a striker who is much popular in FPL, I think is about above 40%, and I think on Fanteam he will also be a very popular asset. I think he's 6 million, so he's even less in price as compared to FPL, and that might be the only thing that we need to worry about in terms of him getting more accumulating fouls and yellow cards and stuff. But I mean, it's not that big of a deal if you look at the numbers. It's still 2.5 fouls per 90, which is decent. So yeah, that's these are the things that we need to consider, which we don't really look at in FPL, because they are intangibles, but here they can directly result in you losing or gaining points.
I tell you what, that Ivan Toney piece you said, I mean, we need to clip that and share it, because that is insight, mate. That is good. I like that a lot. I got a lot of time for that. Yeah. What do you think, Callum?
Yeah, a weird story actually. So I actually played with Ivan for the best part of 3 years. And here I am now talking about him, and there he is as a Premier League footballer. So you see how our lives have changed. But he was always the most arrogant, the most confident in his ability. And I say that in a nice way, because I think you have to have that to get to the top level. And so I played with him between about 13 and 15, 16, something like that. And obviously he was at Northampton Town, and then went to Peterborough, did really, really well. Obviously then went Newcastle, signed him for a little bit. I don't think he made any appearances, but he's one of those that, there's been a lot of talk about, will he struggle in the Prem? I just think he's got so much confidence in his own ability that he will just take anything. I mean, you saw the playoff final and the penalty, biggest game of his life, and he still just strolls up to the penalty as if it's in his back garden, that it doesn't have anything on it, and just slots it away. So I certainly think that in terms of Toney, the pressure won't get to him, and if anything, he'll thrive under being under the limelight. So I still think he's primed for a good a season as he can do being at Brentford. I don't think he'll be there for long. I think he'll have such a great season that he'll be picked up come next year. But yeah, he's one that I think I'm pretty sure he's in my draft, because he's at a nice price point. But yeah, as someone that I say know him, I haven't seen him for a good few years, but his confidence and his arrogance he's second to none, and he always knew he was going to be a professional. So I certainly think he is going to thrive under the Prem. So I'm tipping him for a big season again.
Well, if you're watching Ivan, Callum has got your back, mate. He's got your back.
Yeah, I'm not sure he'd even remember my name anymore. I was a bit irrelevant back in there. I just played sweeper, and he was up front scoring all the goals. So Yeah, he was certainly very, very good. We managed to get to national finals like a district team, and we played at St James's Park, and he just ran the show. So yeah, our lives have changed, and I'm now back to my Saturday league football.
And he was a striker back in the day, was he? Because I know a lot of players were in the younger days play different positions and stuff.
Nah, he was one of those that was always bigger than everyone else, but yeah, he's always been up front, and he's played for a local team called Soccer Stars. And I think he was only there till about 11. Then Cobblers picked him up, and yeah, ever since he was just unbelievable. So yeah, tip him for big things this season, definitely.
We're going to move on to the first drafts now. Jay, you are first. You got two teams. I can't remember if I put both your teams up here, to be honest with you, but we've got one. We got one team for Jay.
Yeah.
Jay, talk to me about this team, and if, for the benefit of the podcast listeners, if you could go through each one, that would be awesome.
Yeah, sure. So in goal, I have Sanchez, and on the bench, I have Foster. In defense, I'm starting with Alexander-Arnold, Digne, Veltman, and on the bench, I have Manquillo and Fofana. In midfield, I have Mane, Havertz as my vice captain, Salah as my captain, Rafinha, and Bissouma on the bench. And among the forwards, I have Antonio, Calvert-Lewin, and Watkins. So I recently finished building my data model for the Premier League season, and this is I ran it through optimizing it for the first 7 game weeks. So we'll have 7 transfers, and then I'm planning to use the wild card. So these are my initial thoughts, and based on that, I think it's okay to have a punt on Havertz for the first game week. Of course, I'll be listening to all the leaks and stuff, team leaks and stuff, if he's going to start or not. And if we get an indication that he won't start, then I'll change him for someone else. But right now, I think Mane's price point makes him, I think the combination of Mane and Salah much more viable than it does in FPL. I think in FPL, it's almost a no-go for me, getting both Mane and Salah. But I think in Fanteam, it's really good to have both of them, especially for the run that Liverpool have. It's really good. And then Rafinha is there just because I don't want to book in too many transfers. I know he doesn't have a really good first game, and I am saying that totally impartially as a Manchester United fan, that he's not going to score any goals. And of course, defense is completely, I'm trying to focus more on fullbacks. So Alexander-Arnold, Digne, Veltman. Veltman can become Solly March because I just need to understand who is going to be the starting defenders for Brighton, and I can then change them up. And then the biggest, I think the big point that I forgot to mention is Fanteam have a 4.0 player for every position in the game, unlike FPL. So they have a 4.0 striker, they have a 4.0 midfielder, and a defender.
Who's the goalkeeper? Is there a goalkeeper? Foster,
yeah, there are a lot of goalkeepers, but generally there are always goalkeepers at 4.0, so that's not a big deal.
It's not necessarily starters, but like 4.0.
Yeah. So the thing is that if you have these kind of positions, it leads to more flexibility in terms of if you want to go with a 3-5-2, then you can have a 4 million forward on your bench. But in FPL, there isn't much of a wiggle room in terms of that. I think in midfield there isn't any 4.0 midfielders, if I'm not wrong, in FPL, unlike Fanteam. So that's something to look for. And forwards, I think there is great value this year in Antonio, Calvert-Lewin, and Watkins, 8 million or below. And I think based on Callum's assessment of Tony, I might change that up, because that's a 2 million saving if I go from Calvert-Lewin to Tony. And I think he's nailed on for, I think, 90 minutes. Is that right? Yeah, I think most of the time he will play 90 minutes. So again, that's another point for completing 90 minutes. So that could really add up as we go through the season. And these are my initial thoughts. And, as we go near the deadline, I'm sure it's going to change a lot, but this is the initial draft. And I think the expected value of this draft is, I think, around 74 X points.
And that's for game week 1, is it?
Yeah.
So expected value, just for anyone who might not know, and I'm not sure if I'm going to get this correct. Expected value is basically a predicted amount of total points based on mathematical assumptions. Is that generally correct?
Yeah, so it's basically, probabilistic returns. So what if a player, you're predicting a player to have an xG of 0.8, a forward, let's say, you're basically saying that he will score 3.2 points because that's 0.8 times 4.
Yeah.
So and then you add all of them up.
Tell me about, very quickly before I get Callum's thoughts on your draft here, talk to me about the dice example. Talking about expected value, we were talking last night and you told me the example about the dice, which I thought was fascinating.
Yeah, so I've been on Twitter for almost a year, on FPL Twitter, and I've seen a lot of people, whenever they see that the expected value model does not predict, the actual returns of a player, they get frustrated, or they say that this is not accurate. But I always give them the example of a dice. So the expected value of a die roll is actually 3.5. But in real life, you can't actually roll a 3.5, right? You can roll 1 through 6, but you can't actually roll a 3.5.
Yeah.
So that's the analogy I would use for expected value in terms of if Fanteam as well, that you can't expect that to be 100% accurate, but that will give you a sense of, let's say you are debating who to go for out of Alexander-Arnold and Robertson. So you can look at their expected values and then you can decide for yourself, oh yeah, his expected value is, let's say, 2 points more than Robertson for 5 weeks. So that's a decent expected value boost for you, and then you can plan accordingly. But to say that whatever the model is predicting, you are expected to see those kind of points, it's going to be very difficult for you to have those kind of returns. But over 38 weeks, of course, if you do that for the whole season, then yes, you will have similar returns, because a player scoring in a game is always overperforming his xG, and when he doesn't score, it will inevitably means that he's underperforming his xG. So that's the kind of reasoning we can use when we look at expected value data.
Thoughts on Jay's draft, Callum?
Amazing. I'll do my thoughts in a second. There's a question on the chat from FPL Poet. They've put, Jay, why no Bruno or Sancho?
Oh, so because I'm entering multiple teams, I have them in another draft. In this one, I'm trying to maximize Liverpool's great fixtures with the first 3 ones. So in another one, I have Sancho, and in the third one, I have Bruno. So that's how I'm playing.
What do you think about Sancho? Going to hit the ground running or take a while?
So again, because he hasn't had a preseason and he didn't really play much in the Euros, I don't know if he's going to start the first game week, but I definitely expect him to be up and running as quickly as possible, because he's just a class player. And I'm not just saying that because I've seen him in Bundesliga, I've seen him in Champions League as well. And you can definitely say that. I think he played Spurs, I think 2 seasons back, and he was absolutely mesmerizing at Wembley. I think it was when Spurs were still at Wembley, and I think it was fantastic to see him play. So and in terms of returns, so I did the projections for Sancho as well, and I do expect his returns to reduce by around 20%, but from 35 returns to reduction by 20%, that's still more than most assets in the game. So if you could, I would wait, but his price point is also much nicer than FPL again. He's at 9 million, not 9.5.
Yeah.
So, if let's say Havertz is not going to start, I might do Calvert-Lewin to Tony and Havertz to Sancho in this draft. So that is something that I will definitely consider.
Yeah, so I mean, just looking at this now, so obviously, again, something that we didn't kind of mention is, there's no chips in Fanteam. You don't have your free hit, you don't have your wild, sorry, you do have your wildcards, you don't have your triple
bench
captain
boost
and all that rubbish. Yeah, bench boost. So just looking at your bench there, because obviously we basically have 2 wildcards across the season. So you have 1 in the first half of the season, 1 in the second half. Do you feel like it's more important to try and spread the value a little bit? Because that's what I've tried to do in mine when we come to that in a second. Do you feel like with kind of Manquillo, I know Basuma's still a half decent kind of asset. Do you feel like it's more important in Fanteam to spread the cost a bit because you don't have the luxury of the chips?
So I would argue that not having the bench boost actually aids us in this regard, that you don't have to ever plan for a playing bench. You can just have maybe 1 or 2 decent players on the bench, and if you want, you can have maybe 2 playing goalkeepers, but I mean that always leads to headaches, and inevitable disappointment. So a quick example is I had Ramsdale and Pope 2 seasons ago, and I always played the one with the better fixture, and the other one always outperformed him because Burnley were that kind of team that Pope used to have like 10, 11 points every game week. And, whenever I played Pope, then, Ramsdale used to have a blinder, and it was just incredibly difficult to predict who was going to score more. So I think it's better to have maybe you can have Schmeichel instead of Sanchez if you go from Calvert-Lewin to Tony and make that savings.
Yeah.
But I get your point. So in one team, I have done that. So in one of the teams, I have 15 playing players.
Yeah.
So the only reason I've done that is my plan in that team is to use my transfers every other game week strictly. So I won't use a transfer in game week 2, for example, because I want to see as much as possible before I make a decision. And in one of the teams, I've gone for the exact opposite. I have 11 playing players and one 4.5 million player, and that's it. So it's even worse than this one. The bench is even worse than this one. And so that is the variation where you're trying to gamble on the fact that none of them will get injured, or none of them will be benched, or none of them will be, postponed. I hope there are no postponements now, but no matches will get postponed and stuff like that. But I definitely get your point, especially in Fanteam, because another thing I would mention here is you can enter a team after game week 1, so you get 95% of the average. So if you are one of those who thinks that I'll just wait, you can enter a team now, and then you can enter a team once you have knowledge of 2 to 3 game weeks. So you technically have 3 wildcards by doing that. And also you get to, I think the deadline is extended up to the kickoff for the first game if you're entering a team late. So that also helps, because right now you only get the team news for Brentford and Arsenal for game week 1. And the situation might be different for other game weeks where you have more than one game kicking off as the first slot of the week. So that might also help you in that respect.
Jay, one question from me is, I've got 2 questions, but I'm only going to ask you one. Okay, it's no Kane. What's your thoughts on Kane if he goes to City and if he doesn't go to City?
That's I think we talked about this. So I mean, I can already see Callum. He's not that happy about the thought of that. But I think Kane, the planning with Kane is everyone wants him for game week 3 when he plays Watford, and there is still a chance that he might play the first 2 games for Spurs and then he moves to City by game week 3. So there is a lot of disappointment if that happens, and that is again a kind of gamble. I love Kane, to be honest. I would have him in any other time, but I think there is so much value in these 7.5 to 8 million strikers that even if Kane does score against difficult opposition, I would expect these strikers to still score, because they have more than, they have easier fixtures than Kane has, even if he's a world-class striker. So that is something that I am considering. I have Kane in the draft that I talked about, where I have no money on the bench, so it's 4.0 times 4. So in that draft I have Kane, but that draft is so inflexible that if I have one injury in that draft, it's going to be really difficult to kind of move things around. But that's my take on Kane. I'm not sure how Callum feels about the transfer, but
we'll come on to that
later. we'll leave Callum as far as Kane's concerned for now. It's really interesting. I think for me personally, I think this is where the fact that Fanteam only has 1 wild card and FPL has 2 will really split kind of strategies, because I spoke to you last night, Jay, about this issue, and if Kane goes to City after game week 1, I could probably see myself wildcarding to get him in, and I think a lot of people would end up doing that, but obviously in a Fanteam that would be crazy, right?
Yeah, it's much more difficult to plan around those kind of things.
Heading into Callum's team then. Callum, for the listeners, if you could tell us your team.
Yeah, I'm a little bit scared now. I feel like I'm going to get some attack. But I'm kind of going with this at the minute. So I've got my 2 keepers as Meslier and Sanchez. I've gone with Meslier on the back of, if anyone hasn't read it, there's a really, really good blog from FPL Graphics on the website, ranking kind of the top 10 top 10 keepers. And in terms of value and in terms of saves, which, you know, like we said, in Fanteam is really important, because 0.5 for every save soon adds up. And Leeds' defence towards the back end of the season was brilliant. So I'm kind of going Meslier and Sanchez. I'm happy to take kind of the 0.5 hit to have two playing keepers. I know that I will face the headache of having both of them at some stage, thinking, who do I play? I'm probably making the wrong choice. But yeah, so those two in goal. My defenders, Trent, I think is just nailed. A, for the fixtures, and B, for, you know, if he can get back to any kind of form from a couple of years ago, you can't not have him. Lewis Dunk, because of what I said at the start about the shots on target, and I think he offers value. I really actually like Brighton, and in terms of, they were, I think, the team that underperformed the most last season in terms of the stats and all the data. So if they can find a goal scorer, they were great at the back. So I think Brighton could be on for a good season. So yeah, Lewis Dunk seems to get on the end of everything. Luca Digne, again, with kind of the Sigurdsson news, being more on set pieces, being, you know, a defender that, with a new manager, hopefully a little bit of clean sheet potential in there. And obviously we know how good he is going forward and taking free kicks. Just on that chat, yeah, there is 2 wild cards. So I think you said 1. There's 1 at the first half of the season and 1 in the second half of the season. So you do get 2. Mane, I've gone with over Salah, because the 2.5 million difference allows me to fill out the rest of my team with roughly what I want. So as much as Salah, not having him is killing me, it's allowed me to do what I want with the rest of the team. So yeah, I'm going to go with Mane in there. And obviously I know he doesn't have the same potential. He doesn't have penalties. But with that price difference, I'm happy to take on Mane to allow me to do what I want with the rest of the team. Mason Mount was the one for me that surprised me the most in terms of price. Is 7 million. And I think for a player that pretty much plays every week and plays a lot of 90 minutes, has a lot of goal potential, I think Chelsea could be a massive shout to win the league this year. I love Mount in there at 7 million. I think he's going to be in all 3 of my teams, and a big steal. I know they don't have the best fixtures to start with, so it could be a chase of putting someone else in, then maybe transferring him in. And then Smith Rowe is a little bit of a, I didn't have much money left. And obviously he's just signed a new contract. Unless they sign somebody else, I'd rather Smith Rowe is a wait and see, but I don't have that luxury. He could be on the bench potentially, but yeah, Smith Rowe, I think, is a cheap option with a team that I don't think are particularly good in Arsenal. Obviously, I do have my bias head on, but I'm not particularly happy with that Smith Rowe one. But in terms of that price point, I don't have a lot of other options. Going forward, I'll come on to the Spurs ones in a second. Watkins, Villa obviously have great fixtures, and if they can keep hold of Grealish, which is looking more and more like they probably will, Buendia and Grealish behind Watkins is a pretty frightening front 3. I think they're actually after Leon Bailey as well, I think.
Yep.
As potentially as, you know, to make up the front 4, and kind of with the solid back 4 and McGinn and Louise behind them, Villa could be coming on for a very good run. So I want more Villa coverage, if I'm honest. I think I'm a little bit weak with just Watkins, but it is what it is. Obviously I've got Tony in there because I've talked about him already, and then I've got Son and Kane, who people will think I'm stupid, and my theory, this method behind the madness, is we were terrible last year. And when I say terrible, that is in no understatement. We were really bad. We were defensive. We were okay up until the West Ham game when we were 3-0 up, and then obviously the stupid 3-3 happened, and Mourinho just seemed to spook him, and that was it. We just defended for the rest of the season. They still, I think Kane and Son were, I think, don't quote me on this, I think the 2nd and the 4th highest point scorers from last year, or something along those lines. They're certainly within kind of the top 5 or 6. And my reason is, if they can do that in a terrible Tottenham team, they can do it in hopefully a more attacking, free-flowing, better footballing team this year, and hopefully they can actually go and beat those scores. So, yeah, Kane and Son are always going to be in there. My bench, like I said, always said Meslier. Sarr, who is, I think, 6 million, is quite a nice price point, is Watford's main man. He was good in the Premier League before. He's had now obviously a full season in the Championship. Who again, is superb. He's also, I think, on penalties when Deeney is not on the pitch. I don't think Deeney will start many games. So I like the look of Sarr in there. I've got Eric Dyer, but that could change. I think, again, it was a 4.5 million, but I just think Dyer will start the season, but I could lean that towards Rodon or Tanganga, who I think are more likely to potentially be a bit of a mainstay. But I put Dyer in as the safety because I'm pretty sure he'll start the first couple of games. And then Ben White, again, obviously, is it confirmed he's gone to Arsenal yet?
I'm not sure if it's totally confirmed, but it's like 99% by the
yeah, basically.
at least, yeah.
So again, for a 4.5 million Arsenal defender, I'm happy to have him as kind of my rotation between 5 defenders, and there'll be times where I want to play him and times that I don't. So I think that leaves me 0.5 in the bank, so not a lot. But yeah, that's kind of the way that I'm looking at this and going forward.
Interesting. Jay, we'll go to you first. What are your thoughts on Callum's draft?
Yeah, no, I mean, if you have loyalties to certain players, then I'm not going to talk him out of them.
What you're trying to tell me is get rid of Son and Kane, aren't you? That's what you're trying to say. By the way, for the record, Harry Kane is not leaving this summer, and if he does, I will give out a free ticket off my own pocket.
Oh, well,
Wow,
there's one. That's 3 free tickets now we're giving away.
Yeah, yeah, that's decent. So I think Kane, I mean, I'm not going to say he's a bad pick, okay? Even if he has like 6 bad fixtures, that he will definitely score in those. Not every game, but
he shoots them everywhere, and he plays 9 minutes every week.
Absolutely, you are spot on. 90 minutes is also a big factor because in the Euro tournament he kept getting subbed off, because they wanted to preserve him for the knockouts. But here he's definitely going to play 90 minutes, so that's another plus point for Kane. And Son is also most weeks he's likely to play. Even if not 90, there's a slight chance he might get subbed off before that. But how much is Son, by the way? Because I didn't really check his price.
I want to say 9 or 9.5.
I think it's less than FPL for sure, but
9.5, yeah. 9.5.
Yeah, okay. So that's decent. I think Smith Rowe is. I concur with Callum that I'm not that comfortable because even though he looks good on the eye in terms of when he plays, but if you look at, there's another stat. So there are so many expected things. There is something called as expected threat now, which is being calculated for players, and even Odegaard outscored Smith Rowe in that regard. So he is not as threatening as we want him to be. He might be if they change tactics and stuff, but because he has also uncertain expected minutes, it's a bit dicey. But of course you can always play Sarr and
in that price range, because like I said, I'm not particularly happy with it. But looking at the other 5.5s, the only other ones, I mean, you've got Podence at Wolves, but I'm not 100% sure A, if he's fit, and B, how they're going to look next year. We've got no one. You've got Jorginho is 5.5 million. You've got Willock is 5.5 if he gets another loan move potentially. But there's no one else there. Like, there's just no one else there that jumps out. I don't want Smith Rowe, but
I kind of like him. I kind of like Smith Rowe for that price point. I've got him in my FPL team, and you're right, Jay. His underlying numbers aren't that good, but I don't know what you're judging this by, but he didn't really play much towards the start of the season, did he? I don't think for Arsenal. No. But towards the end of the season, and I know they had Europa League commitments, etc. It seemed like he was almost first choice, like number 10, and they had, like you say, they had Odegaard there as well, who actually, thinking about it more now, probably did solidify his place as first choice, but. They've given him the number 10 shirt now. I don't know if you've seen that lately. They've signed him in on a new contract, given him the number 10 shirt. So I agree with Callum in terms of value for that price. I really like the potential Smith Rowe has.
Yeah, I've just seen Sam's put another team, United or City, and City, I just can't get over the rotation. And as much as I want them, if I was going to have anyone from City, I think Mahrez is probably for me, but I need to see if he's going to nail down that spot again. So he could be a transfer that if Son's not working, the Mahrez to Son works quite well. So that can come straight in. But again, with the defenders, they're just they could play like 1 in every 2 games. I'm just a little bit like, as much as like Diaz is obviously solid. And then in terms of United, Bruno's a bit too expensive for what I want. Sancho, I'm going to wait and see. Shaw, I could upgrade Digne to Shaw, but I saw the whole ribs thing, so I'm not sure if he's starting the first game of the season. But that Digne could be Luke Shaw. But yeah, it's not with the it's not a conscious choice just to not have City or United. It's just it doesn't work with the rest of the team. I'd have to shoot a lot of other things around. So yeah, I want some City coverage, but I just need to see who. Well, you can't even see who's going to play
Exactly.
because they play one week and they don't play the other week, regardless of how well they play. So I think if anyone, there's Mahrez could go to Son as a transfer, and Shaw could be upgraded to Digne, but I don't see any other changes apart from that at the minute.
So I spoke to Reese about this yesterday, and I think that if you want to maximize, so if you want to tap into variance or you want to kind of go into that direction, then I think people who have Chelsea and City assets who actually play will have a good head start in terms of that. But their uncertainty is so much. I mean, with Mount, I think it's a bit more certain. But apart from Mount and maybe Mendy, but I'm not even sure about Mendy because Kepa kept playing in random games. I don't know how that situation is going to pan out. So with City, Ederson, Diaz, and with Chelsea, Mount, apart from them, I really don't know how, because in Fanteam and in FPL, I think minutes is the most important thing that you need to target. You need to have players who are actually playing more minutes. So like most minutes in for their teams. So if you can't get the talisman, at least get the player who is going to play most games. So that would be my suggestion to anyone who's saying that you don't have City, Chelsea, or United assets. With United assets, Bruno is going to play every game, but you have to make a choice, right? Like Callum made a choice of not having Salah but having Mane. So you can make a choice of going without, let's say, Mane and then get Bruno and make some changes to some other places in your team. So you can do that as well.
Yeah, I think it's interesting Callum going for Mane instead of Salah. Obviously, if it does pay off, your gains are going to be bigger. You would think. Obviously, you would think Salah's going to be the bit more highly owned player, etc., which kind of blocks off Mane, especially in FPL. Maybe in Fanteam, it's a bit more viable to maybe have that double up. I mean, we'll see. But yeah, I mean, like I say, if you're trying to tap into variance and kind of get some good luck, if it comes off, you're going to be doing well, right?
I just like the fact that they've actually given us the choice, as in terms of by separating 2.5 million, there is actually a choice there, which I really like. Yeah,
I think that's something FPL could learn from. It's just that single pricing alone. I think it's fair, and like I say, I think it makes the game better in many ways. Okay, I'll go on to my team now then next, and yeah, here it is. So I'll try and read out my team whilst also resizing your guys' heads, okay? So it's going to be tricky, but Sanchez in goal, and then Ben White and Dunk. So it's not triple Brighton because, like we said, we're expecting Ben White to go to Arsenal. Reguilon, I thought was really good value at 5 million, so he's gone in there. And I've gone for Salah, Bruno, Souček at 6 million. Thinking throughout this conversation with you guys, I've kind of started thinking that midfielders might be the key to this game, because you get a point for a clean sheet, right, in Fanteam. That's correct?
Yeah.
And then you also get a point for 90 minutes, yeah?
Yeah.
So that's an extra 2 points if you just pick, like you said at the start, Callum, your Hjolbergs and stuff of the world, yeah?
Yeah. So it's West Ham go and beat Newcastle 1-0 with Souček having no involvement. He gets 4 points. So
yeah, and that's madness, isn't it? Let's be fair. So do you think we're going to see people picking like these players en masse, or do you think that's a bit of folly there, Jay?
I think. Sorry.
Oh, sorry, mate.
Yeah, no worries. So I had Rice in one of my initial drafts just because of that. So as Callum said, let's say West Ham beat Newcastle 1-0, Rice gets 4.3 points without, as long as it doesn't get booked. So 4.3 points is almost like a return in FPL. So
yeah,
you could do that if you want to, let's say, have all the big hitters. So let's say you have to have, like you have, right? So you have Salah, Fernandes and Kane. So that is going to leave you with very less wiggle room for other assets to have. So that is your compromise that you can make.
Yeah, so I agree with that. Yeah, so so we mentioned the big hitters there. So yeah, I've got Kane as well. Souček I like for the reason like we're going on about now. Mount, I agree with you, Callum. Really good value. When I was flicking through the players last night, I didn't I thought that must be a mistake. Do you know what I mean? How is he that cheap? So he's in there without a doubt. Yes, the fixtures I think after the Crystal Palace game are tough, but I just think Mason Mount is someone who you can rely on all season for points. Maybe not hugely explosive ones, but kind of a steady drip. Kane is in there for his pending move to Man City. Sorry, Callum. And Watkins and Toney, again, 90 minutes, nailed on, value picks. The bench then, Foster, 4 million. It'd be interesting to see if he does actually get the first choice place at Watford. Someone on Twitter commented on, I think, one of my posts yesterday, saying that he's been watching Ben Foster's YouTube channel, The Cycling Goalkeeper. I don't know if you guys watched this.
Yeah.
But apparently he's been wearing the number 1 jersey, and he's been training like with the first team kind of 11 kind of thing. So who knows, that could happen. I got Matt Ritchie at 4.5. I just think he's got huge attacking potential, was on penalties in the past. He had a lot of injury problems last season, but he could come back into the team. So it's a bit of a wait and watch for that one. Gilmore and the gentleman whose name I cannot pronounce, the cheap Norwich right back on the bench. Callum, I'll go to you first. What do you think?
You're getting a lot of love here in the chat.
Oh yeah,
I agree with you. Souček is actually one that was on my list, and we tweeted out kind of a forgotten players. He was on everyone's lips every week last season for everything, because obviously he was just scoring goals for fun, and I haven't really seen him mentioned anywhere this year. And I think at 6 million, like I said, he always plays 90. There's a clean sheet potential. We know how bloody dangerous he is from attacking.
his shots on target as well with that head.
Yeah, he I think that's a really good pick. Reguilon I like as well. I'm just a bit concerned he hasn't played yet at all in pre-season.
Okay.
I know there's only 3 weeks left, but I'm assuming that's just because of fitness. Doherty's not played either, so yeah, I like the Reggie pick. I like the Watkins. Yeah, I'm looking at that team and I really like it, which is annoying.
Thank you very much. Jay, what do you think, mate?
Yeah, I saw a comment. Yeah, I think Bachmann is not yet in training, so I don't know if we can completely rely on Foster getting minutes as an
Euros,
indication.
Right? Yeah, okay. Makes sense.
That could be the case. So it's a wait and watch. Yeah, I think the Richie pick is really interesting. I think if you want, I don't know how much Fabian Schär is in Fanteam, but if you have seen his last penalty, you should go for him, because I think that nonchalance is worth having in your team, right? If you want a player to, it's like he's playing in his back garden. He just rolled it into the net almost.
He's 4.5 million as well, so it's the same price.
So I'm just kidding, by the way. It's Richie is a much better asset, because if he plays, he's going to be quite attacking.
Yeah, he has played out of position in the past as well, midfield or at least wing back, you know.
Yeah, he's one of those players who, every season the games, pigeonhole him into a position and he ends up playing the opposite of that.
Yeah.
So that keeps happening with Matt Ritchie every season, almost every season. And I think you're right about the Souček pick, that if he keeps getting into those positions and if he has shots on target, I think that alone is worth it, because if you have 2 to 3 shots on target in a game, even if you don't score, it's going to be of good value for you. And you also have 2 decent subs, because Gilmore, if he's going to play every game, is also going to be a pretty decent asset. So I expect him to at least play him having 90 minutes at least, even if he doesn't have any returns. So that could be a decent shout as well. So sorry, one more thing.
White, that's the perfect team by the sound of it. I mean, what do you think about what do you think about that 4 million Norwich defender? Do you know anything about him? I don't know much about him, but I've seen that potentially he might play.
I spoke to Norwich fans and they don't expect him to start. So I don't know if he's going to contribute to your team. One more thing I forgot to mention, because he's in Callum's team as well.
Yeah.
Ben White might not be a good Fanteam asset, but he might make Tierney a good Fanteam asset, a better Fanteam asset.
How much is Tierney? I know he's 5 million in FPL.
He's 5 in Fanteam.
He's 5 in Fanteam as well.
Yeah. So you could downgrade Dunk to or you could downgrade Dunk to Veltman or March.
Dunk's my boy.
Yeah.
Man.
So
15 shots on target last season, most goals out of any defender, I think. Is that correct? Yeah.
Yeah, and plenty of red cards as well. So if you want to go
Oh,
that way.
really? How many?
I think two off the top of my head. I remember one
Really?
at Crystal
Oh,
Palace
shit, I didn't know that.
and one at Wolves, where he scored and then got a red card. So
Oh, yeah.
yeah, that's it's always there, right? So,
Damn.
but that's random, so you can't really predict that. But he does have a lot of shots on target.
If he's
so
got if he's
pretty
got
good.
history, as a data modeler, what would you look at there to predict expected red cards? You just look at the history, would you? Or
Yeah, so the simplest way you would model red card possibility is you just look at their history and you average it out, and then over 90 minutes or how many minutes you expect a player to play, you just multiply that probability with that with -3 for a red card. So that would be your expected points for a red card. But I mean, red cards are almost impossible because it completely depends on the game state, right?
yeah.
Is let's say Brighton are chasing and all of them are going forward and Dunk's left behind, and on the counter attack he fouls someone. So that's completely out of your hands, and it completely depends on the game state. And I think against Crystal Palace he got a red card because he tried to attack a ball in the box and he kicked the player like studs up. So it's not just while defending, even if he's so desperate to score a goal that he got a red card for that, I think. So he is definitely a great asset to have. So Regulon could go to Tierney. I think if Tierney is fit, he is a fantastic asset to have in Fanteam, especially because of his assist rate and stuff. And Ben White will definitely make them a better defense for sure.
I think so. Yeah. But do you
I
think
tell you
that'll
what,
make...
there's one. Everyone in the chat's talking about Cavani, and it's making me.
I
go
love
that
Cavani.
way.
He's in my FPL team.
Yeah, he's only 8 million, and the fact that if Rashford's out for a bit, they only play one game a week. I don't know how I'm going to get him in. I don't think I'm going to be able to. Maybe in another team I'll have to get rid of Kane. Cavani, is he tempting people?
Cavani, I like. He's in my FPL team. His numbers last season per 90 minutes are excellent. It's just a question, obviously, of I'll hand over to Jay in a second. Expected minutes, etc., being king. But I'm a United fan. I love watching Cavani. I love his numbers underneath. I love the fact that Rashford, like you say, is out, which means potentially you would expect, or I would expect as a United fan, Martial to play on the left, which lessens the competition for Cavani up front. But the fact that I'm even having to justify all this to myself is probably a bit of a red flag. But yeah, Jay, tell me what you think.
Yeah, no, I think Cavani is a dream FPL asset. If he was in his prime and he would have been at United, then he was a shoe-in, and he might have, I think, risen to the price of Van Persie, in his prime. So he's that good an asset, especially in Fanteam. He's constantly going to have shots on target, and he's going to score plenty of goals and have excellent underlying stats. The only problem, as you mentioned, is his minutes. Even though United are playing one game a week at the beginning, I am still not sure because we have so many options up front. So I don't know if you follow a page called United Arena. They have like a scouting system of their own, and they publish a lot of detailed stuff about system and how Solskjaer is changing his methods.
I'll give him a
So
follow now.
they mentioned that Sancho could end up playing on the left in the beginning and form a partnership with Shaw like he did with Guerrero at Dortmund.
With who on the right though? Greenwood on the right then, is it maybe?
Yeah, Greenwood on the right. So of course this is all speculation because we haven't actually had Sancho in our team till yet. So let's see how the friendlies pan out and stuff like that. But right now I think the uncertainty is kind of putting me off, and the fact that West Ham have still not signed a striker means that Antonio is so much better because Antonio has even better underlying stats than Cavani.
But he's not as good a finisher though. He's nowhere near as good a finisher.
Yeah,
That's
finishing
the
is it's very hard to judge finishing ability based on you can't predict that, right? But XG, as long as you're posting good XG numbers, I think Antonio is still a better asset for me. And I don't know if he's going to be on penalties because I don't know if Lingard is going to move and what's happening with Rice taking the penalties and stuff like that. But if there is an outside chance of Antonio being on penalties as well, then it even boosts him as an FPL asset.
Yeah, I do like Antonio.
I've got one thing putting me off West Ham is obviously the fact they've got Europe this year. I don't know if their squad is going to be able to cope with, especially someone like Antonio. I'm assuming I don't know if they'll prioritise Europe or the league, but someone like Antonio that's got such a history of injuries, he's not going to be able to play 2 games a week. And I don't know, we don't know yet what they're going to prioritise. So that's kind of, I think, was it Burnley that qualified about 3-4 years ago for Europe?
Yeah.
And the following season, they were just terrible because they're not a big 6 club that have got 22 players that are just as good in each position. Like West Ham, we saw it last year that, as soon as I think it was Cresswell was injured at one stage, Antonio was injured, and they start to be really stretched. So that's the only thing. I like Antonio, I like Souček, but the only thing is I'm a bit concerned that kind of when Europe kicks in, I'm not sure if that's going to be a factor to league form.
That's interesting. I think it could be read the other way as well. And I can't remember what teams, my memory's terrible, but there was a team last year in Europe who, because of the fact that they started playing games earlier than everyone else and that the preseason was so short, they actually brought that momentum into the league. I can't remember who it was, but that it could work both ways. But yeah, it's a difficult one. I agree with that. Okay, Callum, I'm going to hand over to you for the giveaway and then we'll say goodbye. Guys, I have forgotten to ask anybody to like and subscribe, so please do like and subscribe if you've enjoyed the content at all today. Liking the videos really helps us out. Callum, over to you.
Amazing. So yeah, like we said at the start, because the technical issues, we do apologise. So we'll throw out 2 today, and it means we've got 1 more to give away next week because Fanteam been nice enough to give us 3 to give away. So to win the first one, it is going to be the first person that comments correctly the right answer in the chat, and it will be on the order that we get it. So fortunately, if it's different on your screen, we apologise. It'll be the way that we get it. We're not going to cheat or favour anyone. So the first question, and we want the first answer, is who was Jay's 2 keepers in his draft? First person to get both correct in the chat will win the first Monster ticket. So Jay's 2 keepers in his draft. First one will win. See everyone frantically typing away.
Yeah, can I type that?
Sorry, mate. Not sure we can give away to ourselves. I'd love to. See, there's always a bit of a delay, isn't there, between the stream on YouTube?
There is a bit of latency. Yeah, there is a bit of latency. They're coming in now, though. They're coming in on my side.
Okay, is it Dominique Kaz?
Yeah,
Dominique
Sam,
Kaz,
I think.
number 1, yeah.
If you want to be
Dominique
technical about it, because Forster's a different keeper.
Oh, I think we'll let him off. I don't think we'll be that horrible. Okay, we'll say that Dominique Kaz, congratulations. You have won the first Monster ticket. If you can slide into our DMs on Twitter, we will sort that one out for you, sir. Okay, second one is, I'm just checking, that's one that's not on the team. Who was Reese's most expensive player in his draft? So who was Reese's most expensive player in his draft for the second Monster ticket? First one will take the second ticket, and then we'll have 1 more ticket to give away next week, and that will be someone that has subscribed on our YouTube channel. So we will put more details of that out probably tomorrow or later on today.
So in that case, guys, make sure you go into your settings on YouTube, and there is like a privacy setting where if you subscribe to a channel, you can let them know that you've subscribed, or you can hide your kind of identity. So obviously you're not going to win if that setting isn't in the correct kind of setting, really.
Yeah. Okay, so I think Sam has won the second one anyway, so we get to please everyone. So Sam has got that right. Reese's has gone with the big dog. He's gone with Salah. So again, Sam and Dominique Kaz, please both slide into our DMs on Twitter, and we will sort those out for you. Congratulations! And if you win first prize, in the unwritten rules that we give out is that we get half of the money. Thank you.
Bro, so all that remains to say is, guys, thank you very much for watching. Do hit the like button if you've enjoyed the stream at any time. Hit subscribe if you are new. We've got lots of content planned throughout the week, as well as these are going to be a regular thing. Jay, well, thanks, Jay, for coming on, for starters. Thanks for having you. Just thanks for coming on. And can you let the people know where they can find you?
Yeah, so thanks for having me on, guys. I can be found at Schadenfreudist on Twitter, and I'll be continuing with my articles for Fanteam Focus for the Premier League season. So weekly articles about the team with the highest expected value each week. So look out for that.
Awesome. I'll be looking at that. Callum, thanks for coming on. Where can the good people find you?
Again, yes, obviously either the official Fanteam Focus account, I say official like we're some official thing, we're not, just Fanteam Focus, or just Fanteam Lagden is my personal one as well. I've just seen a few comments on things saying they saw the answers before the question. Unfortunately, that is down to the Wi-Fi your end, so that is not our fault, I'm afraid. Upgrade your Wi-Fi and you may be able to win it next week. But yeah, there is loads of content coming out this week. Certainly make sure you are on the Discord, because we've got a Discord only Fanteam Focus Cup coming up next week, which anyone here from Footstock was massively popular, so that will be coming on next week. We've also got our leaderboard where we are giving away £1,000 the first prize and £2,000 across the whole lot, and all you have to do to enter is refer one person using our link, and obviously that helps us out massively, because as much as we are now growing as a team, at the same time we still need some income to make sure we can keep everyone happy and keep whacking out the content. So we massively appreciate any of that, but please make sure you follow us on Twitter, subscribe on YouTube, get onto our Discord, etc. And yeah, like Reece said, these will be every week from now on, hopefully throughout the whole season. So yeah, lots of exciting things to come up, but yeah, thank you very much for having us, mate.
Bro, guys, thanks for coming on. Thanks for watching, guys, and listening. Don't forget, hit the like button, subscribe if you're new. If you're listening on the podcast, leave us a 5-star review, share it with your family and friends. Nice to see you. See you later.
Cheers, guys.
Okay, so that stream should be ended, okay? And I've clicked stop, so you've got nothing to worry about.
Click stop, amazing. No, that's really good, mate. Well done. Appreciate that.
Thanks. Apologies for some of the technical stuff, but we'll iron those out.
No worries, no worries.
Not a problem at all. One of those things, isn't it?
Yeah, I really enjoyed that. That went quite well, I thought.
Yeah, that's good. No, it's really good. It's like the time flies, doesn't it? Like if we aim for an hour every week, I think we're slightly over that this week. But
I think the stream is still on.